And is the project leader of studies on gallstones, colon cancer, and diverticular disease. I have with me Olaf Postel, who is works under a brand Rechain within the Pre-Zero group, who provides tailor-made take-back systems and recycling programs for product end-of-life devices and other items. He's going to come and provide some expertise on the environmental aspects of single-use endoscopes. And finally, I've got Ronan Coffey, who is from Boston Scientific and leads the global energy management system towards the company's decarbonisation. So this session is hoping to address and discuss a significant controversy within single-use devices, which is the environmental impact on it. The chat and Q&A has been rather alive with questions about this during the whole meeting. I've been through that already and written down the questions to make sure up until about the ones that were sent up until about 20 to 3 this afternoon, and any others will get sent through to me as we go here. But I will endeavour to make sure those questions are answered as best we can during the session. What we're hoping not to do is discuss and debate as a whole international environmental policies, more looking at, given that we've got a single-use device for endoscopy, what we can do to try and make that a zero carbon product essentially is is the debate, and what that means for all single-use devices within our specialty, not necessarily one provided by a single company, but as a whole. But I'm going to speak to Ronan first. So, Ronan, as I said, you're leading the global energy management system for Boston Scientific, and I wonder if you could let us know a little bit more about what that means in your role.
Sure. Thanks, Gareth, and delighted to be with you today. So, as you said in the introduction, I am Global Energy Manager with Boston Scientific. So essentially that means leading what we call GEMS, which is our global energy management system, and working towards decarbonizing our energy use and working towards a goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. So this is a journey we've been on for a number of years, and carbon neutrality is our current goal, and we've more recently announced more ambitious goals that will take our emissions reduction program outside of the energy world into our full footprint. So happy to talk to you on that today and tell you as much as I can about that.
Yeah, so what one sort of first question is, obviously we're talking about single-use endoscopes here, but you know, I mean, when I've seen the packaging to one, it's a box almost as tall as me, and has got you know, tear open plastic and paper, and then paper surrounding it, and every device that you produce, and every device every company produces for single use has that. What's going on about packaging recycling in terms of the company's commitment to? I mean, do you use packaging that's been sort of recycled previously, or is it you know, what materials is it made from in the first place, for example?
Yeah, straight up, I'd have to say I'm not the best person in Boston Scientific to talk about the packaging end of things, given that my remit is in the energy world, and the energy we use to manufacture our products and distribute our products. I do know that there is a lot of work happening across a wide range of the product portfolio and packaging. I couldn't do that justice myself today by trying to give you an overview on it.
Fair enough. So does that mean that your factories that are producing devices are working with solar panels, wind energy, that sort of thing to produce the devices that we've got? And what about the supply chain element?
Yeah, good questions. It starts with the factory, and we've been working on this for a good number of years. We started to tackle our energy usage predominantly from a cost and from a kilowatt hour perspective originally, and then we started to work closely with the University of Ireland here in Galway to develop a global energy program. And through that research project, it became clear that really energy is more about emissions than it is about dollars or kilowatt hours, because that link between energy use and emissions and climate change has been strengthening over the years, and it's indisputable at the moment. So our goals flipped from energy reduction goals and cost reduction goals to carbon emissions reduction goals. And out of that research then came the decision to commit to carbon neutrality by 2030. So we made that commitment in 2017. And also from that research came the strategy to achieve that goal, which is very simple. We call it C cubed, which is cut, convert, and compensate. So it's effectively placing primary focus on energy efficiency, or put it another way, on reducing waste in our energy use. And the second C is convert. So that's all about switching away from fossil fuel energy sources to renewables. And then the final C is for compensate. So recognizing the fact that we will not be able to address all our emissions through cut and convert, there will be some remaining emissions that we'll need to buy carbon credits or carbon offsets for. So under each of those C's, we've got a lot going on. We have efficiency programs happening in all our factories. We're implementing ISO 50001 certified energy management systems to embed that continuous improvement energy management processes. And then on the second C, to your point about renewables, we're gradually deploying on-site renewables where it is feasible, and we're in the negotiating some larger offsite deals in terms of virtual power purchase agreements in both Europe and the US to secure that renewable pipeline of energy that we require to run our operations. And on the other C, the compensate piece, we're formulating a carbon offsetting strategy. We haven't done any carbon offsetting at this point, but we're starting to formulate a strategy, and we see us stepping into that space next year. So that, you know, what I've described so far really speaks to the energy use within our operations. But we've also recognized that there's a whole other slew of emissions outside of that to do with our supply chain and to do what we call indirect emissions. So we've been working on, first of all, assessing the scale of that for the last year, and that's been a significant piece of work. And the culmination of that is we've committed only last week to setting science-based targets around our full scope of emissions. So not just the energy piece, but everything up and down our supply chain. So we have, what that commitment means is we've got 24 months now to come up with science-based targets or emissions reduction targets aligned to climate science, aligned to the global carbon budget, reduction budget required to maintain global warming within 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Effectively, the commitment we've made is setting us on a long-term trajectory for net zero by 2050.
Can I ask, do you know what proportion of your energy usage goes into single-use endoscopes as a proportion of everything that you develop through your entire business?
I don't have that detail. I mean, I can tell you by country, by location, but typically our manufacturing plants manufacture several products, hundreds. So it's very difficult to apportion as energy use per specific product.
Yeah, what I was trying to get at was although I've heard a lot of people have quite a visceral reaction in relation to this particular product and the amount of stuff you put in the bin when you've completed the procedure, but it probably pales into insignificance in terms of amount of energy used and amount of stuff that goes in the bin when you compare it with the rest of the product line. Is that exactly the same stuff is happening about, and for some reason this particular product has caused a lot of environmental related distress among people, which I can understand why, but it's really just a kind of, you know, putting it into perspective a little bit compared to everything that's going on.
Yeah, I can tell you that, and again, I'm not the company expert on this, but there is quite a bit of pockets of work happening around life cycle analysis of individual products and product lines. So I see that it's something that will feature more and more, and will enable us then to attribute, you know, specific emissions footprints and specific energy profiles to products and product families.
Great. So we've also got Olaf Postel here, who, as I said at the start, is actually a professional in looking at net zero work and an international environmental services provider, and looking at where things can be recycled. And I think it's been presented the challenge of recycling and how the materials used in an exalt or a single-use duodenoscope can be done. So Olaf, would you tell us a little bit about the recycling project that you've been doing?
Yeah, I can do that. Thanks for having me. Yes, we are running a recycling project on these single-use endoscopes. And to first maybe explain a little bit what recycling means to us, because I think there's often people who see it differently. We see recycling as a way of material recovery. So we are not talking about energetic recovery, but we're talking about material recovery. So the idea is to, after the end of use, to bring the single-use endoscopes to a recycling process, and so that the different materials which are embodied in the product, to really bring it again for example, mainly the plastic parts, mainly the metal parts, to bring them back into plastics and metal applications. So in the end, the metal should go to smeltering process again to end up in those metal components, and the plastics parts will go to like regranules, so secondary raw materials of plastics, which then will also end up in plastic components and products. So that is the idea, that is the target. And we are now very close to performance tests. So we are very, very happy on this roadmap with our target in mind.
And do you think this sort of thing of returning these devices to their component, or raw materials, if you like, is that energy-wise as damaging to the environment as putting it in the bin, or is it better to use it? I mean, it doesn't seem like an easy answer to me. Yeah, no, it's definitely better. The environmental benefit of recycling is mainly twofold. The first one is that you save up virgin materials. So whenever you recycle material, of course, you don't have to use other primary resources. So that's a major part, which also has as a major effect, of course, on the carbon side. And on the other hand, by recycling the product, you keep the carbon dioxide or the carbon atoms within the material itself. So in comparison to incineration, where more or less you do exactly that, you free the carbons and generate carbon emissions. So these are the main two advantages and environmental benefits that you see in every product carbon footprint comparison when you see the different disposal routes. Yeah, perfect. And the bit of kit is quite a big bit of kit, as we already alluded to, and it costs a lot of money. So does the cost of a product directly correlate to its carbon footprint? Well, when it comes to producing it, to be honest, I'm not the right person to be asked. But when it comes to the recycling part, of course, recycling means you put in effort. And of course, recycling in the end is a cost factor. And then if you see the benefit of the recycling is, of course, that you use the material for other applications. So there, the business case is generated through that you use other material and this material in other applications. But for this, you need to do, of course, you need to put effort in regarding the recycling process. And there you have to see where the balance is. Yeah, but what we see from most of the product carbon footprint studies, where recycling paths are compared to landfilling or to incineration, in most of the cases you see the positive impact through recycling. And just on cost, you may not know the answer to this, but do you think that will be able to go back down the chain so that the manufacturer might be able to provide these devices at a cost that more than just the richest economies in the world can afford to put into their healthcare system? Yeah. Well, I think it's not only a single step journey. It's a many steps journey that we have to take. And at the beginning, of course, you have to see like what kind of material quality you will receive out of the recycling process and what kind of applications you can fill with it. And if, of course, you're talking about a medical product, which also enters the body of people, then of course you have to have a very, very high quality of the material. And yes, this is of course always the the end game to get the closed loop running. But at the beginning, it will definitely be looking for other applications, and maybe even in the medical area. But then you have to exactly take a look what kind of material specification works with this material. But yes, the good thing is, maybe that's the add-on. The good thing is, and this is what you see, what is happening at the moment. You see companies really taking care of their extended producer responsibility.
And one main advantage, if you keep the material within your own sphere, within your own corporate sphere, you of course also know exactly what kind of recyclate quality you get, because you know the material that you have used in your products, and if you use it back, you have a very good idea of what material you will get back.
That's great. And just to be clear, the actual project does not involve dismantling, cleaning, and reassembling the components back, so it goes back in the box as one that's already been used but has just been cleaned.
Yeah, no. So far, no. But we shouldn't forget that, of course, there are some big challenges with recycling such a product, because we're talking here about potentially infectious waste, which needs special handling. And in order to be able to recycle it, there is, for example, you definitely need to have a disinfection process step. So we need to do it stepwise to really build a platform, to get a recycling process running, and then to refine the process step by step. And this is also then you also have to touch on product design, because then maybe you can use other material which have a better performance in recycling, or you need to connect material in different ways. So it's not a one-step journey, but it has many steps, and we are approaching the end of the first step.
That's brilliant. So, Prof. Hamper, when I first used one of these, the staff I work with stood mouth open while we threw the whole scope in the dustbin. They could not believe it. I just wondered what happened in Dresden.
Yeah, I think it's quite similar. You know, when you see it first, both the packaging and the device, it's quite impressive, and I think that's also the reason why we're having that conversation right now. So our link into this realm is basically because some of the processing is done locally here in our kind of jurisdictional area. Therefore, we will be one of the pilot sites for this recycling process, and we're excited to be part of that exploration, basically. And there's a lot of questions, obviously, that need to be answered, and let's see how that works. Obviously, Boston Scientific products are not only used in gastroenterology, but also in urology, other areas, and we need to coordinate that and have good storage and things like that.
Yeah, I guess that if Exalt as a product gets the ball rolling on finding ways to recycle all of the plastics and metals that we use in day-to-day medical interventional procedures, then I guess that's a good thing.
Yes, definitely. And I think we should also start thinking broader, obviously, to the other products that we use every day. As you alluded to earlier, obviously, we haven't cared about all the other piles of plastic that we're producing every day, and that obviously comes from multiple vendors. And I think that will be one of the challenges, that we don't end up with kind of our Boston Scientific bin and our Cook bin and our, I don't know, Olympus bin, and kind of that's I think that's both a challenge and also a chance, basically, to establish overarching recycling systems. Also, kind of, I mean, gastroenterology was relatively, I mean, the Exalt system is our first big throwaway item. If you go through a OR and after laparoscopic surgery, you had multiple, whatever, really a stapling and everything. So that's a pile that's happening, across the street every day. So I think there's a chance to basically see that as an inroads to a more systematic and a solution that will have benefits beyond the Exalt project.
Yeah.
topic. And I love the comment by Professor Hampe saying in surgery, now everything is disposable. There's a pile of materials going out from the operating room every day on a regular basis. Nobody is just arguing anything. So we've been overwhelmed by comments on that during the meeting, also in preparation of the meeting. So the question is to four of you, what do you believe we should do to inform properly physicians, nurses, patients, general people about the fact that this is going to be safe for the patients and not impacting the environment at a global level? So is there any action that you're going to suggest to us or to the company as well?
Well, so from my point of view, the use of this particular device is actually not that widespread internationally in reality. Okay, it's not in every hospital in every country, unlike some of the surgical devices and catheters and everything that just go in the bin. So actually, although there's been a lot of worry about the impact of this particular device on the climate, and there is a question in the thing about the sustainability policies of governments and removing single-use devices as much as possible. I think if the introduction of this device gets the debate going and gets international medical device manufacturers into actually working out how they can, recycle the materials, it's got to be a good thing, is my view.
Jochen.
Yeah, I think also the answer is in innovation, basically. So we have a starting point here that puts that has started to initiate initiatives like that with Boston and for that particular device, and then we should see how it goes. And obviously, it won't be a perfect solution in the first iteration cycle, I think. So we and Boston and the recycling people will learn a lot, kind of what works, both from the disposal, from the storing on site, from the disassembly, to the reuse of the materials. And then I think future instruments will also be, designed for recycling, obviously. Then, what you learn, what works, and then new generations also of duodenoscopes will look different than today. Also, not only based on our medical use experience, but also based on the recycling experience and the practicalities of those processes.
Olaf?
So, yeah.
Yes, I totally share the opinion of Mr. Hampe. So it's a as I said before, it's a multi-step process, and this is a very good start that we make. And if this shows positive and the performance tests are positive, I think there's a good chance to extend it to other fields. And also to, of course, optimize the process to get better and better material quality out of this recycling process. Yes.
Ronan, from Boston Scientific standpoint, what is the next action to let people know that it's not going to be impacting the environment, that there is sustainability program on that?
Just to answer your previous question, I wanted to say that I do think it's an evolution, and I think this is an evolving space, and I think demands of customers are going to shape what corporations do, and corporations are seeing increasing demands in this space. And I also think that policy and regulation is also moving things in that way, and studies such as Olaf presented, I think are also going to be very, very important in how this evolves. Sorry, could you ask your question again? The second question you asked.
No, they said, what will be the next action from Boston Scientific to let everybody know that this is a really sustainable?
I think there's two levels of this. There's one, as a corporation, what are we doing? Because obviously it wouldn't make sense to focus on a product and ignore the bigger picture. So I think work has to continue on the product and on the life cycle analysis and on the recycling aspects of the product and on establishing the footprint. But also behind that, there has to be a global program on our overall emissions. So I do think the global program is moving in a very good direction, given the recent goals we've set and the new trajectory we've set ourselves on for net zero by 2050. And I think the two need to work in parallel.
Okay, great. I will leave to Gareth, if you have any final comment, because we need to go to the end of the meeting. I see that Enrique is joining us. I think also Amrita is still there. So after your final words, Gareth, I would like to close the meeting with Enrique and Amrita as well.
No problem. Well, I think a really good discussion about the environment going forward. I think the first steps to get recycling of any reusable medical device has got to be a good thing, and it's really good that looks like we're going to start making that step forwards. So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, guys. Very interesting debates, very nice thoughts. So I will leave to Amrita and Enrique to make final comments, to say goodbye to everybody, to next Endoscopy on Air event. We're still here, working for all of you guys.
Do you want to talk first, Amrita? Your microphone is okay.
Great. Thanks again for having me part of this really interesting discussion from many standpoints, and just watching the procedures and listening to the debates. It definitely seems like this is the way of the future. I think any innovation, when we think about that, we have challenges that come up. We need to come up with solutions. The upfront cost of innovation is going to be expensive and will present new questions and challenges like, what do we do with waste and whatnot. But, and ultimately, I think the question that we heard a number of times is, can the procedure be done in equally effective way as with this new device and getting rid of the issues of infection. And I think that's something that will develop. I think it's a fascinating process that has arisen from this, is how we're seeing the iterations happen more quickly. Changes and responses to those challenges are happening more quickly. As far as I could see from the procedures, which were done excellently, is that all of the intended procedures could be done well, and that it does change a little bit the way you do a procedure. We saw body positioning different, maybe approach to cannulation is a little different, but I think that might challenge people who've been experts in the field for a long time. But I think it's something to think about. How we think about even how we train and our approaches to procedures. So really great discussions.
Thanks, Amrita. Lovely. Enrique, last words to you and we close the meeting. Thanks.
Alessandro, I have enjoyed very much the meeting, the journey to the single-use endoscopes, and I have got different messages. For example, transmission of multi-drug resistant organisms is a much more important issue as we thought a few years ago. And this is an increasing problem, no doubt about it. Of course, in this scenario, the development of single-use endoscopes is a very good news. I mean, we never discuss about the use of single-use devices in the endoscopy room. Now we are moving to the single-use endoscope in this issue. So from panelists, they support what we do in our clinical practice. I am happy. So we use single-use endoscopes in immune-compromised patients and in patients infected with multi-drug resistant organisms. That is today. But of course, everything is a matter of cost benefit. And I'm confident that as the prices goes down from these single-use devices, single-use scopes, the indications will increase, and probably very soon, every single endoscopy unit will have single-use endoscopes available for doing explorations. And just to come to the end, I have enjoyed very much. And Alessandro, I should congratulate you for a fantastic and organized meeting. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Amrita. Thank you, Enrique, for your final comments. So we're just beginning of the journey. There is a long way to go. So we will come back soon. Thank you, everybody, for staying with us so long. Ciao, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.